Good morning. I'm Carl Cannon, Washington Bureau Chief for Real Clear Politics. This is the RCP Takeaway for Thursday, May 6, 2021.
I'm Philip Wegmann, White House reporter for Real Clear Politics.
So, Phil, you're filling in for Tom today. Those are big shoes to fill. You ready?
Hopefully, we'll find out.
All right. Well, let me start you with a trivia question. Whose birthday is it today, Philip?
Well, because I read the Morning Note, I know that's Willie Mays' birthday.
It's Willie Mays. The Say kid was born in Birmingham, Alabama on this date in 1931. Those of you who don't read my morning essay, I sort of went off and wrote sort of a little letter of love to Willie Mays today. But Phil's our White House correspondent. Phil, let's start with what's going on at the White House. There's some development in immigration. Tell me about it.
While the White House continues to focus on their America Families Plan and also moving forward with this infrastructure, they have promised throughout their first 100 days in office that they're trying to fix the immigration system that Donald Trump wrecked. The other day, Jen Psaki in the White House briefing room announced that one of the biggest problems was being managed, in particular, undocumented, unaccompanied children in federal custody. Now the number is down from about 6,000 to about 600. And what's more, the time—
that's the total number of kids in detention?
Apprehended each day, and the amount of time that they spend in detention is down from about 111 hours down to about just 30. So the White House, they asked for time. They said that there was a plan, and it seems that their process is in effect to get these kids in and out of really what are some facilities that were never designed for them.
Has anyone at the White House ever acknowledged, Phil, either privately or publicly, that Joe Biden's election and a lot of the Democrats' loose talk about welcoming immigrants during the campaign, including things that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris said, that this in any way precipitated this crisis that we saw in the first weeks of the Biden administration? Have they ever acknowledged that?
Not to my knowledge. They've rejected the idea that a softening in rhetoric from Joe Biden, and a softening in rhetoric in comparison not only to Donald Trump, but also Barack Obama, that they have said that is not the cause of the surge. Instead, they have argued that this is, seasonal. This is the result of corruption in the Central American and South American countries, and that this surge actually started under the previous administration. If you ask them a question about, what's happening currently, one of the first things that they'll do is they'll refer back to decisions that were made under Biden's predecessor. So they're not taking blame for this one, even though Biden was, striking a much more compassionate tone on the campaign trail.
Well, even though the people interviewed, the few kids who were allowed to be interviewed, told reporters, Biden wants us to come. I mean, they made no secret of it. So I don't know. That seems a fiction that, well, if they're fixing the problem, I guess that's the important thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to have to be some accounting for why some of these undocumented immigrants come to ports of entry and protest wearing shirts that say "Joe Biden let us in." Clearly, there's a political component here. And, even PBS asked the president during his first press conference if the reason why there was such an influx was because of this perception that he was a good and decent man. Clearly, even as the White House likes to remind us, words have consequences. And there's a perception right now that Joe Biden is not as tough on immigration as his predecessors were.
All right. Well, let's switch gears. Let's talk about Republican delusions now. What's going on with Liz Cheney? I thought that Kevin McCarthy had sort of quelled the anti-Cheney rebellion within his party, but I may have been premature.
If he quelled it before, now he's fomenting it. Kevin McCarthy has made clear that it's open season on his House conference chair. He has sort of stepped aside, and now the caucus is coming after the number 3 Republican, and he's not doing anything to defend her. The latest development is the thought is that Representative Elise Stefanik could be a viable replacement for Representative Liz Cheney. What's interesting here is that if you actually look at policy, And a number of the rank and file guys have been complaining for some time that Cheney isn't conservative enough. But if you look at policy, whether it's the scorecard that Heritage Action or Club for Growth puts out, it's clear that Cheney's actually more conservative than Stefanik. The difference, though, is that Stefanik became the star during the Republicans' impeachment defense the first time around. And that's been enough to sort of wash away any ideological sins that Stefanik might have. Right now, it seems that that MAGA world conservatives, they want her rather than Cheney for that reason.
Well, if you, Margaret Carlson in the Daily Beast pointed out that Liz Cheney's voting record in the Trump administration was actually more conservative than Matt Gaetz, too. Which raises the question, Philip, if Liz Cheney's not conservative enough for you, how small do they want to make the Republican Party?
I was chatting with a plugged-in source with conservatives, and he basically set out the game plan like this. He said that the expectation is that Liz Cheney will step aside, that Stefanik will come in, and she will be conference chair just while Republicans are in the minority. If they regain the majority, then everything needs to be renegotiated. And I think that might be some wishful thinking from conservatives because I'm not certain that they're going to have that kind of sway come 2023. And when you start having these purity tests that don't have to do with policy, but instead have to do with allegiance to one figure in your party, that isn't exactly the sort of thing that grows the size of the party. Although I do understand their gripe.
Well, about, a third of the public, if asked if they're Republican or Democrats, declined to state. I mean, and not all of these people are moderates, but if the Democratic Party becomes the party of defund the police and the Republican Party becomes the party of Trump uber alles, it makes me wonder if there's room for a strong independent movement or even a third party, Phil, because it seems that a plurality of Americans, or a large minority, are just simply unrepresented by these two parties that are drifting to the polls. And I mean that POLES polls.
Exactly. And do we really think that that swing voter is sitting at home right now saying, well, I really want to figure out what Republican brass in the House of Representatives in the minority is doing right now? I don't think so. More often than not, it's probably the plugged-in voter who still is a big fan of Trump. He remains incredibly popular in the party, but Republicans are at risk of possibly missing some of their moment if they are focused on who in their party is still loyal to Trump rather than going after Democrats for their perceived excesses. It seems like during this time in the minority, rather than facing inward, at least publicly, they should be on the attack.
I think we'll leave it there, Phil. This has been our morning takeaway, RCP takeaway for Thursday, May 6th. We do it Tuesday and Thursday on video. Join us tomorrow for an extended podcast, which is audio only. And I'll leave you with this one thought, Philip. You probably aren't even old enough to have ever watched him play, but to see Willie Mays play was to remember him forever. Happy birthday, Willie Mays.
Happy birthday, Willie Mays.